What's up, guys? Sergio here. So today I want to talk to you guys about is red meat and whether or not it's good or bad for you. Red meat has been in the limelight for quite some time now. A lot of researchers and experts have been saying how bad red meat is, how it can cause cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even death. But on the same token, there's still so many people who eat red meat, even people in the health and fitness industry, and a lot of them even tout the health benefits of red meat. So the question is red meat really that bad for you? So let's kind of dive into some of the research and try to understand why people are coming to the conclusion that they're coming to. So first off, red meat is any meat that is red when raw. So if you go to the grocery store and you see things like beef, pork, lamb, things that are red when they're raw, those are going to be considered your red meats, things like that. So red meat is known to actually have a lot of nutritional value to it. And then rather than me list off all the things that red meat can contain, I'm just going to put a list up on the screen. And this is looking at specifically ground beef. So as you can see, there's tons of nutrients that you can get in red meat. Very healthy, has an array of vitamins and minerals and things like that. So very nutritionally dense, especially if you're getting like grass-fed beef, for example. You're going to get a lot of nutritional value out of that. So the question is, if red meat is so nutritionally dense, why is it getting such a bad rap? And so in order to understand that, we have to look at how they're doing a lot of the studies and the research on red meat. So when looking at the research on red meat, a lot of the studies done on red meat are observational studies. And with these types of studies, it's very easy to draw. They're very good at showing a correlation between two things, but they're not good at showing the causation of those things. So for example, who's to say that people who eat more red meat aren't the same people who have other unhealthy habits like smoking, drinking, eating other processed foods? Maybe they're not as active. There can be so many other variables to look at that might also have a link to cancer that aren't really seen when doing these types of observational studies. So if you want to do a better job at understanding whether there is a connection between red meat and some of these other health risks, it would be better to do a randomized trial or test where you take two groups of people, you randomly put them in groups, you both assign different types of diets to those groups, and then you would then track and record what they eat and then record the results. That's going to be a better way to get an understanding on the impact of red meat and the health effects to it. Another thing that happens a lot with observational studies is that they don't distinguish between processed and unprocessed meats, which that in itself can have a big difference. Processed meats are really going to be anything like cattle or beef that is grain-fed instead of grass-fed, and then it's just gone through a lot of processing in the manufacturing at the manufacturing level. So there's a difference between the processed meat and unprocessed meat. Some observational studies have actually shown that there is a strong correlation between cardiovascular disease and other health risks when the meat is processed. But when looking at unprocessed meat, there's no connection at all. So once again, it's just important to distinguish between the processed and the unprocessed meats when doing these types of studies so that you get accurate results. Another possibility when it comes to the link between cancer and red meat might be actually the cooking method, specifically when cooking at high heats. So for example, when you're cooking burgers on the grill and you're trying to get that burger those nice charred lines or those markings on the meat, that is actually something that can actually be very detrimental, because what is happening is those charred marks contain compounds that can cause cancer. So it might be just the cooking method that's really the issue, and not necessarily the red meat itself. And with that being said, it's not just red meat that is prone to forming these cancer compounds, but also lots of other kind of foods when cooked at high temperatures can have the same type of effect. So it's not limited to red meat, but once again, this can kind of give red meat a bad rap if we're not paying attention to how other foods are cooked across the board, and whether they also produce cancer compounds. Lastly, all the nutrition that I did mention that's found in red meat can also be found in lots of other foods. So it's definitely not limited to just red meat where you can get all these nutritional value from it. So it's definitely a good source to get those types of nutrients, but it's not like the holy grail when it comes to nutrition. So in conclusion, I think that the whole idea of red meat being bad for you and being linked to cancer and cardiovascular disease and things like that, I think is severely misunderstood. I think that it's important to look at the research, look at how they're doing the studies before determining whether red meat is really the culprit. I think the takeaway is to really watch the processed meats that you're consuming. Really try to limit yourself with those type of meats. Try to get more unprocessed meats, so like, you know, cattle that's grass-fed and things like that. And then also you just want to watch the cooking method that you're using when you are cooking red meat and other foods for that matter. You want to avoid, you know, burning or, you know, really char grilling your meats, because those are going to actually have a higher potential for cancer. And then finally, like I said before, if you are somebody who doesn't like red meat or you don't eat red meat, you don't need to be too concerned with eating red meat, because you can definitely find all those nutritional benefits in other foods. I think as long as you eat a balanced diet, a healthy diet, and you're consuming some type of other animal protein, you're going to be just fine as far as getting all the nutrients that you need. So hopefully that clears the air on red meat. Hopefully that helps you guys understand the controversy with the red meat a little bit more. If you guys did like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you guys have not subscribed to my channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.